What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Go Fuel. This would be episode 28, I think, of 32. I think it's 28. Is it 28? It is. It's 28. So we've got 4 more teams after this: the Niners, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Rams. Today we're going to talk about the NFC North champions, the Green Bay Packers. Of course, had to bring on my guy, fellow Packers fan, Emmitt Sevores. What's up, man? Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you, man. Hey, it's nice to be. Every time I've been on, we've wound up talking Packers anyway. But it's nice to be on with that being the sole purpose of the episode. Because we had the Vikings, and of course, we had to trash the Vikings with some Rodgers talk, and then we talked the Raiders, and that one was a little bit more painful because we were talking about Davante Adams, but I know we're going to talk about some Davante Adams today, but it's going to be a little less painful, I think. A little less.
Of course. I enjoy talking Packer football, obviously. I'm a Packers fan. Justin, if you're listening to this, this is supposed to be kind of our thing, man. So shame on you for not being here. No, but I know why you're not here, so it's all good. Let's jump right into it. I'm not even going to entertain Davante Adams conversation today because here's the thing. The Packers are going to be just fine without Devonte Adams. And if you don't think that, then you're an idiot. What I do want to talk about, though, let's talk about Allen Lazard, no, let's not talk about Allen Lazard right now. Let's talk about Romeo Doubs, who has been phenomenal so far to this point in training camp. And I'm on record as saying a couple of times over the course of the series that I take everything in training camp with a grain of salt. And I do. I really, really do. And I mean that. This is not me being biased because it's Romeo Doubs, but he's been doing really, really, really good things. And I think of all the names that you keep up with for training camp for the Packers, is obviously you want to know what Allen Lazard is looking like because he's going to be the new wide receiver 1, right? You want to see what Christian Watson's doing because he's the rookie. You want to know how Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt are doing because they're our rookie on the defensive side of the ball. You want to know what Jair Alexander is looking like because he's expected to be back and fully healthy. You want to see if Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas can pick up where they left off, right? Of course, you care about Aaron Rodgers. You want to see what D-Box looking like coming off the injury from last season, having only played 1 game. But of all of these names, I don't think anyone was really looking out for Romeo Doubs. And he's just come out and been really, 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 really good so far in training camp. And I think that he could potentially have an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of season this season because I don't think anyone's expecting that out of Romeo Doubs, right? We're all talking about what Allen Lazard's going to look like. We're all talking about what Christian Watson's going to look like as a rookie. We're all worried about what role, on-field role anyway, that Randall Cobb will have this season now that he is the longest tenured Packer receiver, although he did leave and come back. But like those are kind of the things we're worried about. But Romeo Doubs has been impressive. And Aaron Rodgers has been headhunting Eric Stokes defensively, and Romeo Doubs has been getting the better of Eric Stokes a lot in training camp. I just wanted to make mention of that and just to talk about how impressed I am with Romeo, despite the fact that, take it with a grain of salt, we'll see what it looks like when the regular season actually starts. But right now, he's looking damn good.
Yeah, and I think you pointing out that he's doing it to Eric Stokes is a huge piece of this puzzle. Yeah. Eric Stokes, I think, to the people who didn't watch Packers football last year, you missed out on watching Eric Stokes. He had 1 bad game all season, and that was against Jamar Chase. And for what it's worth, Jalen Ramsey had a bad game against Jamar Chase in the Super Bowl. So, so it's not a horrible thing to get cooked by Jamar Chase, but he was pretty solid all year long. So to see that, again, we hope that it's just Romeo Doubs is just that amazing, and it's not that Eric Stokes has taken, a step back or has not progressed forward. And I don't want to say I told you so yet, but I write for a site called Dairyland Express. They cover all Wisconsin sports, but I specifically cover the Packers. And just about 2 weeks ago, just before camp started, I put out an article about which rookie wide receiver I thought was going to have the best season. And shocker, it's not Christian Watson. It's Romeo Doubs that I have having the best rookie season. And I think it's because, especially if you look at the skill set he has, Christian Watson has the better 40 time than Romeo Doubs. But Romeo Doubs, I think, is way better at creating separation. I have him going somewhere around, I think I have him getting 50 catches, around 550 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I think especially you look at this, Rodgers has never had less of an opportunity to trust rookie wide receivers. He has to trust them this year, is what I'm meaning to say. He doesn't have any other option, right? And you know, in that article, I go into, you know, about how Rodgers hasn't had a rookie wide receiver who go over 600 yards, and the only one who went over 500 yards was Marquez Valdez-Scantling in 2018. I mean, they are going to be forced to go to these rookie wide receivers. And part of the thing that's helping Romeo Doubs is, I think, the fact that Christian Watson's not at camp. He's still on the PUP list. But Romeo Doubs has been absolutely insane. I mean, I know you saw those clips from the Packers family night where he's making everyone look fantastic. I mean, heck, it doesn't even matter who was throwing him the ball. I mean, he made a fantastic play over, I believe it's one of our undrafted corners. On a throw from Jordan Love. I mean, he really, really does look special. You just got to hope that it's him looking special and not, you know, the defense not looking super duper good.
Yeah. So kind of rearrange the order of the show, but I just really want to talk about Romeo. I mean, Romeo's been doing great things. So let's talk about Allen. Allen Lazard is, by the way, on my fantasy team. Because like, why wouldn't he be, right? Allen Lazard as a wide receiver one is, I think, going to be one of the biggest I told you so moments in Aaron Rodgers' career if this season pan out the way we as fans and you know, members of the Packers organization, especially Rodgers and Lazard, expect it to be. Because there is this wide belief across media and across fans outside of the Packers, you know, realm of influence that are just licking their chops from a defensive standpoint as far as can't wait to headhunt Allen Lazard. Like, Allen Lazard's not a bad wide receiver. This isn't a scenario where you've got a rookie quarter or a rookie running or a rookie wide receiver coming in to be wide receiver one. This is a guy that knows the offense, that while it's not on the level of the chemistry that Aaron had with Devonte, there is still a level of chemistry there, and there's still a level of trust there with Aaron Rodgers. And this isn't a scrub that we picked up off the street or some Joe Schmo that we signed like out of nowhere. Like, this is a guy that's been within the organization. I don't think, from a production standpoint, that the drop off will be that steep between Davante Adams and Allen Lazard. Not saying that Allen Lazard is better or on the same level of Davante Adams. Obviously not. Davante Adams is the best wide receiver in football. Allen Lazard right now is not even close to the top 20. So that is not the comparison. But when you're talking about just the way that the Green Bay Packers run their offense and the already established trust that exists with Allen Lazard, it's not insane to think that Allen Lazard won't have similar numbers to what Davante Adams had last season, or in seasons past. And I think that is something that hasn't been given enough emphasis, I think. Maybe that's just, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when you look at, I think when people start talking about the Packers offense, I think this is for any offense that loses a wide receiver or even gains a wide receiver. But in the Packers, you know, I'm going to talk about the Raiders for a second, then I'll switch into the Packers. People just assume that Devonte Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller are going to have the exact same seasons they had last year. That's just not true. There's a lot of targets that need to be spread around, right? They're not, you know, Devonte Adams in that offense is not going to get the 169 targets that he got last year. Switching to the Packers side, there's 169 targets that Aaron Rodgers gets to finally spread out. And if you look at it, Allen Lazard, he didn't have a fantastic year last year when it comes to like yards per game, but yards per catch, slightly above Devonte. He has less than half of the targets that Devonte got. Again, Devonte got 169. Allen Lazard only got 60 targets. Lazard only had 3 less touchdowns. Devonte had 11, and Allen Lazard had 8. I think that when you when they rearrange who's going to be getting the targets, I think you're going to see Allen Lazard get a step up. And I think especially you look, I can't remember exactly the stat from last year, but I think Allen Lazard had the highest passer rating when targeted on third down, I think since the beginning of 2021. So he was number one. Devonte Adams was number two. Aaron Rodgers feels comfortable throwing the ball to him. And I think, honestly, that's the biggest part of all of this is when you look at the whole Rodgers doesn't want to throw to rookie wide receiver things. He just needs someone he's comfortable enough throwing the ball to. If he feels comfortable enough giving him the ball, he'll give you the ball. Allen Lazard, I remember one of the worst Packers receivers I've seen in a while was Geronimo Allison. But Rodgers trusted Geronimo Allison. He did.
Geronimo Allison sucks.
For whatever reason, on a third down when Davante Adams was covered, Geronimo Allison was the guy that Aaron Rodgers was going to try to go and pick out. And again, I think that Allen Lazard is miles ahead of where Geronimo Allison was. But I think we could see an increase in Allen Lazard's numbers. I think especially when you look at, again, 169 targets that they're going to have to dole out. You got to think probably just less than half of that. If not, I think Allen Lazard's probably going to be in around the 120 target range. Obviously, they got to redistribute MVS's 55 targets, and he was never a big like high completion percentage guy. I mean, he was pretty much 50-50 on whether or not he was going to come down with the ball, right? Especially if it was in traffic, then it was more like 1 to 100. Who knows? But Allen Lazard, I'm assuming that he's I think his touchdowns are probably going to either stay the same or go up, because even when I looked at it and I saw 8 touchdowns, I was like, wow, really? He had 8 touchdowns? But I think you could be looking at a guy who's probably going to get his first 1,000-yard season, because I don't think we're going to look at an offense where there's not an 1,000-yard wide receiver. I think we've had that in years past when Devonte Adams was at 997. But I think we're looking at what you're going to see is he'll be somewhere from, I think, probably around 900 yards, maybe up to 1,250. I think is what we're looking from Allen Lazard. And I think you could potentially see up to that like 11 touchdown mark that you saw, with a guy like Devonte Adams, especially because of how much bigger built Allen Lazard is. And especially when you think about how useful Allen Lazard is going to be in that run game that I know we're going to talk about a little bit later. Allen Lazard is one of the best run blocking wide receivers in the entire league. You don't think that they're going to do some things where they're putting him in motion and they're letting him kind of slide out of the backfield? I mean, that little Devonte Adams route where he just ran into the flat and he was wide open, right? It wasn't fancy route running. It was fantastic scheming. And I think that you'll be able to plug in a guy like Allen Lazard, who does have a little bit of quickness to him. And he again, if you want to throw him a jump ball, he's 6'5". I think that Allen Lazard is being extremely underrated by the media. Again, I don't think he's going to, come out here and put up Jamar Chase numbers. But I think saying that he's going to have an 1,000-yard season with at least 9, maybe 10 touchdowns, I think that's completely reasonable for Allen Lazard.
Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 531 times last season, as you mentioned, right? 169 of those targets were to Devonte Adams. 55 of them were to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So there's 224 targets now that need to be accounted for.
And that doesn't even count the 17 that they gave to Equanimeous St. Brown.
It also doesn't include the fact that Robert Tonyan will get some of these targets back because he'll be back and he'll be healthy, right? You have to think that, but like, there's 224 targets on the table. This is a guy in Aaron Rodgers who, since Matt LaFleur has taken over in 2019, he's thrown the ball 569 times in 2019, threw the ball 526 times in 2020, threw the ball 531 times last year. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball at least 525 times this season. 224 of them are missing. So 200 of those 224, I like to think that at least half of them, so 112 of them, are going to go Allen Lazard's way, on top of what he was already getting, which he was hovering around 50. Like, it's possible we could see Allen Lazard targeted 170 times this season. He's the wide receiver one. That's just kind of been the thing. When you look at what Devonte Adams is doing, he was at 120. He was at 169 last season. He was at 149 in 2020. He was at 127 in 2019. And let's be honest, 2019 he missed 4 games. 2020 he missed 2 games. If he plays those 6 games, he would have probably had roughly 170 targets if he would have played the entire season those 2 seasons like he did last season with exception of 1 game. So Allen Lazard, as long as he stays healthy, is going to have 1,000 yards receiving. Allen Lazard had 8 touchdowns last season on 60 targets. Devonte Adams had 11 touchdowns last season on 169 targets. I'd like to think that he's going to get at least 10 touchdowns again this season and to hit a like it's going to be. Is Allen Lazard going to go for 1,500 this season like Davante Adams did? No, he's probably not going to go for 1,500, but he'll go for 1,000, maybe 11. Could push 2 if the season's going really, really well, and he's continuing to get better in the trust of all. But to think that Allen Lazard can't be a capable wide receiver one on this team is just idiotic. I think because I think we're not comparing talent. We're talking about, can Allen Lazard do what Davante Adams can do as far as workload? And from a workload standpoint, what you're asking me is, do I think that Allen Lazard on roughly 179, if we're being extremely optimistic of the target share, if Allen Lazard on potentially 170 targets, can he catch at least 100 of those balls and get at least 1,000 yards receiving? The answer to that question is yes. And here's the thing. Based on his stats, he could get more because he averages 13 yards of reception. Davante Adams last season averaged 13 yards of reception. So he could, if the target share is exactly the same and he plays exactly as many games as Davante Adams did last season, he could 100% replicate what we saw Davante Adams do last season. Now, he's not as talented as Davante Adams is. And so that's why it's more easy for me to lean on the side of, get 1,010 with, at least 100 catches in there. And that's a great season for a guy that's being pushed into the wide receiver one role maybe a little bit earlier than he would have anticipated, but he's still very talented. He's still more than capable. And while he might not be while he is not as crisp of a route runner as Davante Adams is, because Davante Adams is one of the greatest route runners in the history of the sport. Allen Lazard is not a bad route runner. He could be better, but he's not bad. He doesn't run every route on the route tree exceptionally well, but he can run every route on the route tree. And here's the thing, with MVS being on, someone has to take the role of being the deep ball threat on third down. That's probably going to either be Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. Whoever that isn't going to be is going to take Allen Lazard's role. So, and if Romeo Doubs keeps up when he's been keeping up and Christian Watson is as advertised coming out of college, if that transfers to the NFL, Allen Lazard will absolutely do just about as good, relatively speaking, of course, not from a statistical standpoint, but just be as productive and as reliable for Aaron Rodgers as Davante Adams was. And I think the other thing, too, for this offense that maybe will sound a little bit crazy, there's a chance this offense can be more efficient this season than it has been in the last 3 seasons, right? And from an outsider looking in, it's like, well, how do you say that? Well, let's think about it. In the biggest moments of games, whether he was open or not, or whether it was right or not, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball to Davante Adams because there's a trust factor there, and it makes perfect sense. That doesn't always mean that throwing the ball to Davante Adams was the right read or the right thing to do. Aaron Rodgers is now forced to, for the first time in at least 3 years, you could say maybe 4, really, but for the first time in 3 years for sure, Aaron Rodgers is kind of forced to fully go through his reads and not just kind of do the thing. Well, I got Davante and he'll make a play. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that Aaron doesn't go through his reads because he does, but in big time situations, especially like in the playoffs, we just kind of see in late in games, like we saw several drives last season where it was just Aaron to Davante, all the way down the field to either tie a game or come back from behind or, like whatever, like that game against San Francisco week 3, that was the case. The game against Cincinnati when we missed 30,000 field goals and that game, the game against LA and after Thanksgiving and the game against San Francisco again in the playoffs that we ultimately lost. Like it was always just Aaron to Davante. Like now Aaron Rodgers is in a position where he's going to have to look through all 4 guys on the field or all 3 receivers on the field and Robert Tonyan and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. If everyone's like, those are the things that Aaron Rodgers now has to do. And I think that could make the offense more efficient because it makes it so that defenses don't know in big moments where the ball is going. Because before, it's going to Davante. Now he still made the play because he's just that damn good at the game. But now it's like it could go to Allen or it could go to Watson or it could go to Cobb. Or it could go to Amari Rodgers if he's like there are a cornucopia of options that Aaron Rodgers has, and I think that people are highly doubting because of the drama he's caused off the field the past couple of seasons, just how great of a decision maker Aaron Rodgers is, and just how good of a you don't reach the heights that Aaron Rodgers has reached if you're not some sort of leader. He might not be the best of leaders there are. I'm not saying he is. But there are leadership qualities that Aaron Rodgers possesses that has led him to be one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game. Those things matter. I think we're going to see those things more. And there's a chance that at least in the passing game specifically, we could see a more efficient Green Bay offense because we're not just going to be force-feeding just one guy in every big-time situation. I think that is very beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, and I think if you look especially – this is going to be the first time that Aaron Rodgers is really going to have to spread the ball around since probably 2016 when he had a young Devonte Adams, when he had a Jordy Nelson, when he had a Randall Cobb. That was really the last time we watched him spread the ball around. And he put up an MVP caliber season with that was the whole run the table thing of the year. And honestly, I think he still probably should have won it over Matt Ryan, but they weren't going to give it to a 4 or a 5 seed. I mean, he's going to spread the ball around. And you named all the options, right? Romeo Doubs obviously having a fantastic camp. Christian Watson, there's your rookie wide receivers, potentially Samori Toure if he winds up making the roster. But then you look at the veteran guys. Randall Cobb's going to get some sort of targets, whether it's going to be a large amount of targets. I don't think so. But then you look, Allen Lazard's going to get a lot of those targets. So one of these guys is going to have to step up. They're not going to be a horrible offense. They're not going to go from being one of the best offenses in the league, where they're putting up, 50, 60 touchdowns as an offense. They're not going to go from that to all of a sudden being extremely mediocre. It's just not, unless Aaron Rodgers takes a magnificent step back. And I don't think he's going to. We're going to see something pretty good out of this offense, I think. I mean, it's what you were saying about them being more efficient. I 100% agree with. You're going to see this isn't the year to take a Packers player in fantasy, I don't think. Because I don't think there's going to be a single player who's like, wow, their numbers are incredible. They're not.
You can always bet on Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, yes, okay, yes. Besides,
from the wide receiver room, wide
receiver room and from the tight end room as well. I think that
unless you really love Allen Lazard and what he can do, which I do, which is why he's on my fantasy team.
I think that he's one of those guys I'm sure you could throw in like a flex spot.
He's on the he's not a starter. He's a flex.
Yeah.
If the matchup's good, let's toss him in there.
Yeah, no, and so I think the offense could definitely be more efficient. And I mean, again, teams were what makes Aaron Rodgers and what makes the Packers offense over the past couple of years so incredible is that everyone knew it was going to Devonte and they still couldn't stop it. What are they going to be able to do when they don't know where the ball's going? It's going to be for the first time in like 4 years. And, maybe this stresses us out as fans too. It's going to be 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. And we're going to be like, where's the ball coming?
Yeah.
The defense is going to think that exact same thing until, probably halfway through the season. And even then, they're still probably not going to know because I think Rodgers is going to spread the ball out around enough that it's not going to matter who he's going to.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, that makes a massive difference as well, and I think that this is something worth drawing from. Look, the Packers are undefeated without Davante Adams.
It's 10-1. It's 10-1. I'm trying to remember what the one game, but I mean,
I'm almost positive we're undefeated against. I'll look it up right now. While I'm looking this up, though, it might be 10-1, but there are small things too that matter, right? Like David Bakhtiari being back matters a whole lot. If this is a situation where we're going into the season without Devonte Adams and David Bakhtiari, okay, yeah, we've got troubles in the pass game, but we got the best left tackle back in football. They've done a lot of offensive line gymnastics to kind of like make it so that anyone can plug anywhere and it all just works and it all just makes sense. The Packers without Devonte Adams, going all the way back to 2015, it's not pretty. Well, it's like it's 3 losses all the way back to 2015, which is when he first joined the team. But
when he was like get on the verge of getting
when
cut.
he wasn't Yeah, when he wasn't the Davante Adams we know and love today. In the last 3 years, though, so from 2019 to now, the Green Bay Packers haven't lost a game without Davante Adams. First game without Davante Adams was October 6, 2019. That was a win in Dallas, 34-24. The next week, they played without Davante Adams, beat Detroit by a point. The week after that, they played without Davante Adams, spanked the Raiders. The week after that, beat the Chiefs by a touchdown. Then 2 years ago, September 27th, we beat New Orleans 37-30. And then a week or so after that, we beat Atlanta 30-16. And then last season, we had the big game in Arizona. We beat the Cardinals 24-21, and we didn't have any of our top 3 wide receivers in that game. That game's always going to have a special place in my heart. But even if you go all the way back to 2015, you see the game in 2018 that was right before New Year's. We lost 31-30, but we didn't have Aaron Rodgers in that game, I believe. There are 2 other games in 2017 against
was the 31
the
was
Lions and
the 31-30, was that week 17? It was because it was 31, it was 31-0, right?
Yes, that's when we didn't have Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Rodgers got knocked out on the first possession of the game. That's what it was.
Yeah, so that one doesn't really count because we didn't have our quarterback. Yeah, and then the other 2 games that the other 2 were against Detroit the season before that. We lost 35-11. We didn't have Aaron Rodgers in that game either. Brett Hundley played in that game. That was the game after Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone the week before against the Minnesota Vikings. So really, with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback without Davante Adams, this team is undefeated. Yeah. Now, is this team going to go 17-0 this season? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not why Packers fans bring up that stat. We bring up that stat because we've done this before. We've gone 2 games on the road against tough opponents or against not so tough opponents and been okay without Davante. So it is not outlandish for us Packers fans to believe that without Davante Adams now for an entire season, that we're not going to be successful when if you count all the games that we've played against Davante Adams since he's been in the league, that's 3, 6, 9, 12, that's 13 games, which is 4 games less than a season. And we are 10-3 in those games. And the 3 games we lost, we didn't have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So we're 10-0 against teams without Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers quarterbacking. Like that, those small things matter. And I think that is another reason why, of course, you want to have Davante Adams on the team. He's the best wide receiver in football. You want him on the team. But it's things like that gives you solace in the fact that everything will be relatively okay. Because we're not going to go 17-0, obviously. We're going to have to lose a game. We're going to lose several games this season. It is the fact that, okay, we've seen this before. We've been successful. And so we have no reason to worry. It'd be different if in those games we just stunk up the joint. But we haven't. We've played good ball. Allen Lazard stepped up in those games. So has Marquez Valdez-Scantling stepped up in those games. You saw Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in those games play a bigger role as well. Robert Tonyan played a big role in one of those games as well. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. So Devonte Adams, of course, you'd love to have him in the Green Bay Packers uniform, but it's not that big of a loss from a production standpoint that he's gone. That is the hill I am choosing to stake my flag at the top of, and call me crazy, but I will die on that hill. Let's talk about Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, who both of whom are primed to have potentially really good seasons, because there is a chance that maybe the Packers will lean on the running game a bit more than they have in years past under Matt LaFleur. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, where do they rank among the best 1-2 punches in the backfield in the NFL?
Oh, they're number 2. They're number 2. I'm gonna give Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I'm gonna give them the number 1 spot.
You know, Kareem Hunt doesn't want to be
He requested a trade, so hey, if he gets shipped out, we know who's coming for that number 1 spot. You're looking at, and I think it's because of how perfect Jones and Dillon complement each other. You see, Dillon is obviously, he's a raw power back, but he has some hands, and that's what's very important, especially in this new stage of Aaron Rodgers' career. Because I remember he didn't always used to hit the check down. Like he never used to hit the check down. That was honestly one of his big flaws. Now he almost hits the check down, I think sometimes even to a fault.
Yeah,
But
he
having
hit
a
way too much.
but
Way
having
too
but
much.
having a back but having a back coming out of the backfield who's able to catch, that's absolutely fantastic. And then you look at Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones really is the complete package at running back, right? Both, if you look at the stats last year, Aaron Jones had just a little bit more Aaron Jones had a little bit more in yards per carry, as he always does. But AJ Dillon had more yards. Obviously, he played 2 more games, but he had more yards. You look in receiving. Aaron Jones had almost 400 yards receiving last year. That's pretty impressive. He had 6 touchdowns. He had the 3rd most receiving touchdowns on our team. He was in front of Randall Cobb, just behind our WR1 and Allen Lazard. You got to look at this duo being one of the top in the league. I mean, again, it really is between them. And then, you can obviously throw in the Dallas backs if you think Zeke still has something left in him. I don't particularly do, so I'm not going to put him up there. But the Browns backs and the Packers backs are 1 and 2, and honestly, I don't hate if you go either way with them. And again, it's the versatility of Aaron Jones, where he almost, what was it? Was it in 2020 or was it 2019 that Aaron Jones had, what was it, 20 total touchdowns? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, in 2019,
he's a damn good football player.
he had 19 total touchdowns in the regular season. He was an absolute monster then, and I think that he could be used in a very similar situation now. And I think especially with how the Packers did his contract, they know that he's going to be here. I think probably this year or next year is probably going to be his last year. I don't think he sees out his entire contract without some sort of restructure or a shorter term extension to kind of move some money down the line. But they're set up very well, and they've at worst they're 3rd, if there's some back combination that I'm forgetting about. At worst they're 3rd, but I'd put him at 2, and I wouldn't be upset if you put him at 1, Marcus.
I think they're the best duo in football.
There we go.
I mean,
there we go.
And it's not even a bias thing. I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are splendid. Don't get me wrong. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are fantastic. But there is something about Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt that I think sometimes it works. Sometimes it's a little, there's some slight hesitation. I think Nick Chubb's the 2nd best running back in football. I do. I think after Derrick Henry, I don't think there's a better running back in football than Nick Chubb. I don't. But here's the thing with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has never in his career had more than 300 yards receiving out of the backfield. Aaron Jones, he's on each of the last 3 seasons. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, when you start talking about Kareem Hunt, same thing. Kareem Hunt's spectacular. Kareem Hunt has had a mild injury history, and not mild. He has a history of injury and durability, but same thing with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, well, when he was in Kansas City for those 2 years, he did it. He had 455 his rookie year receiving. He had 378. Then he had 304 rushing. But the complement of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon is such that either of them could be an every down back. Either of them could be the red zone back. Either of them could be your 3rd down back. Either of them could be the receiving back out of the backfield. And it's also in such that you could put both of them on the field at the same time, and you don't know whether it's going to be a run or a pass. I think and I feel that if you put Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the field at the same time, you are doing so to hand the ball off to Kareem Hunt because Nick Chubb is the better pass blocker of the 2. Or it's a screenplay, or it's a design QB run, and you need extra blockers on the field. And it's not to say that the Browns haven't passed when both Chubb and Hunt are on the field. It's not that they haven't, but it is that Aaron Jones is he's a very good runner of the football. He is also a good receiver of the football. AJ Dillon is the prototypical bell cow back. I don't think once you get, I don't, aside from Derrick Henry, now obviously he's not RB1, and so that's why we haven't seen it. But just when you think about a bell cow back, you think about a big dude that can run you over and smack you in the mouth. There aren't that many big wide receivers or big running backs in football.
Yeah.
That can do what AJ Dillon can do as a runner and as a receiver. So from a overall statistical standpoint, I have always deferred to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt because we've seen them as a tandem together longer. At the end of this season, though, I think AJ Dillon, the AJs, will take the mantle as the best 1-2 punch in the backfield, unless Ezekiel Elliott gets his life together and stays healthy. And then in that case, I think the Dallas Cowboys have the best 1-2 punch in the backfield in football. I do think, though, that, and it's not just because Kareem Hunt wants out, I do think, though, that Cleveland's days as being able to say they have the best 1-2 punch in football in the backfield are numbered. And whether it's Green Bay, whether it's Dallas, hell, whether it's even Minnesota, if they start using Alexander Madison a bit more with Dalvin Cook to kind of limit his injury situation that he's been dealing with the past couple seasons, one of those three teams will take the mantle, but all four of those teams are in the top five. And I would say after those four, I don't even know who the fifth team would be because there aren't many teams that have reliable 1s and 2s. I think maybe you could look at Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs maybe as being the fifth. You could look at Austin Eckler, sorry, and Josh Kelly, but Josh Kelly doesn't get as much play time because Austin Eckler's just that damn good. So, yeah, I mean, that's really those four, I think, are on a level by themselves for sure. I would say if I had to put a fifth, I guess I would put Sony Michel and Raheem Mostert in Miami because I think they'll do well in Miami with the way they run offense. But with that being said, we've kind of talked about all the good stuff. We didn't really get into the defense that much, but the defense is great, and the defense is just going to be the defense. I mean, there's really not much to talk about aside from the fact that Jair Alexander is back. Quay Walker and Devonte White, I think, are going to have good seasons from a rookie standpoint. I think they'll be okay. And I know you and I weren't excited about it at first. Weren't the happiest at first a couple months ago, but I think we've since come around. So let's talk records. The Green Bay Packers, obviously, yet again, for the however manyth time in as many years Aaron Rodgers has been the quarterback, have another first place schedule, which I mean, that's what happens, when your team's really good. You get a first place schedule all the time. So aside from the 6 games within the division, I believe we have the entire NFC East. And I can't think of the division in the AFC that we match up against.
That's the AFC East as well.
And then the AFC East, that's fun. And then we've got the Rams, I've done this so many times. It's like I don't know why I can't think of the schedule off the top of my head.
Rams. How many? Oh, I was gonna say. I think we have what we get: the Rams, we get the Chiefs, or sorry, that's preseason. We get the Rams. We get. I'm trying to look at who the other division. I think we got the. I'm blanking on the other. Oh, we get Tampa as well. We get Tampa as well.
Rams, Tampa, and there's another one in there that I can't think of. But how many games do you think the Packers are going to win this season?
I went on the Bolt, and we talked about this, and I had the Packers going 12-5. And I think I'm gonna stick with that. I do think that this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. But really? I do think
we'll talk about that in a second.
I think this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. Does that mean I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl? No, but I do think it is a team that could potentially go in there and win the Super Bowl. Here's some of, or I believe, maybe I have them going 13-4. Well, all right, cool. We're gonna go with 13-4 then. Here's I think where you're gonna have your tough games. Tampa in week 3, I think, is a loss personally. I think that Rodgers has a poor record in Florida. He's 3-5. I think that it's just for whatever reason he doesn't. It's very similar to. Do you remember back in 2019 what it was like? they were like undefeated everywhere else, but then like in California, they were like 0-4. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a situation like that where it's just like I think that he's probably going to have a tough time. Maybe the Packers can wind up stealing that one. With a potential win over. Now that looks like the center there and Ryan Jensen's going to be out. Maybe Devonte Wyatt and Kenny Clark can take a bit of advantage of that. But I think they're going to lose that game probably. I think another game that we're probably going to lose.
I agree with you there.
Another game we're going to lose. This is a guarantee. Is Buffalo.
Yeah,
we're going to lose.
That's easy.
and that's not like a shot at Green Bay. Losing to Buffalo, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to lose to Buffalo this year. I think.
There's only two teams I have beating Buffalo. So
yeah. And then I have Miami, as I said earlier, as one of our losses. I think that Christmas Day game after coming off of the Rams, I think that's going to be a little tough for us. And then I have us losing one of the games to Minnesota. Which one? Mm-hmm. I would assume that it's probably going to be. I would assume that it's probably going to be that Week 1 game. As I think we have a lot more moving parts in our offense than they do. I realize that they have a new coach coming in, and we talked about that in our Vikings episode. But I think that it's very reasonable to think that the Vikings and Packers have split much of the past however many years. And I think that it's very real that we're looking at a potential a split again this year. So that puts us at 4 losses. I'm trying to look what the other one I thought was a loss was. I think potentially, maybe we could get caught off guard and lose one of these games because I think with our schedule, the way we don't have necessarily brutal opponents, because again, we get to play the AFC or the NFC East, which is, Dallas, Philadelphia, cupcake schedule. And then we get to play the AFC East, which honestly, in my opinion, outside of Buffalo is kind of a cupcake as well. Exactly. I think that the only cons with our schedule is that we basically have 9 road games in terms of having, the London game. But I think we should be fine in that one. But yeah, having to go to Tampa, to Buffalo, to Miami, even the Commanders, because here's a fun stat for you. Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 at Washington for his career. And I remember all of those games in the regular season. He won there in the postseason, but in the regular season, he's 0-3.
There is no, and I want every Commanders fan watching this right now. So my dad, my mom, my sister, my friends, my cousins, all of you, I want you to hear me and hear me good. There is not a chance on God's green earth that Aaron Rodgers comes to FedEx Field. What week is that? That terrible field, week 7, after we spanked the Jets and the Giants. There's not a chance on God's green earth that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers lose that game. And if any of you want to bet me on that, I will be happy to take your money, because it's not going to happen. It will not happen. I refuse to allow that to happen in the universe. It's just not going to happen. Here's the thing. When I first did my record predictions, I looked at the schedule. There were 3 games for sure that I think we're going to lose: at Minnesota, at Tampa Bay, at Buffalo. Every other game on the schedule, I have us winning, which means the record's 14-3. We're not going to go 14-3. So I adjusted it because I am assuming that we might lose to the Rams, even though I do have the Rams winning, and I did make a bet with Squabble on the Buck show that we're going to beat the Rams. I do stand by that. Barring injury, I do think we're going to beat the Rams. I put them at 12-5 because I can see a situation where we do lose the Rams, and I can foresee a scenario potentially where we lose to a team like Dallas, or maybe, like you said, Miami, because we'd be coming off of that Rams game. But you think that this team could compete for a Super Bowl, and I'd like to know why, because I do not. And that's not me being negative. I think it's just reality. I think, listen, I'm on record as saying that the Packers need to never have a bye week ever again, because bye weeks just aren't our friend. Well, the playoffs aren't our friend, but especially bye weeks. We don't do good when we have the bye. there are 4 teams. I don't want to. I keep doing this. I don't want to give too much away because there's an episode coming where I rank all 32 teams in tiers. Not really power rankings, but just kind of ranking them in teams. There are 4 teams that I think are bona fide Super Bowl contenders this season, no matter what. It's 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. So the Bills and the Rams and the Bengals. And then the 2 teams that I think they will each play in the championship games on Championship Sunday. That's the Bucs and the Bills. Those are the only 4 teams I think that are bona fide Super Bowl contenders because those are the only 4 teams that don't have any. Well, the Bucs have questions now without Ryan Jensen, so maybe I need to revisit that. But like the Rams are the defending champions, they don't really have any questions. They didn't really lose anything. Well, I mean, they lost Robert Woods, but they replaced him with Allen Robinson, and they lost Von Miller. But I don't really think Von Miller was that much of a loss because, you know, he's veteran presence, sure. But when you got Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and a plethora of surrounding pieces, I don't really think that matters. So the Bengals, they did the one thing that no one thought they would do, and that was bolster the offensive line. So I think that they're likely going to be contending as well. The Bills, I think, are going to be the best team in football this season. I think they're going to win 15 games. Will they win 15 games this season? Probably not. But they're the only team I have winning 15 games this season. They're the only team I have actually in the league winning more than 14. I have the Rams at 14-3. I have the Bills at 15-2. With all of that being said, the Packers, as much as I love them, realistically speaking, right, there are just a lot of interesting matchups that could not work in our favor. We need to go back to just playing all our games on the road. That's what needs to happen. We need to have just all road games in the postseason. I want us to go to Minnesota, win that game. I want us to go to Dallas or go to Dallas and win that game. Then I want us to go to LA and win that game or go to Tampa. I want road games. Because home games for Green Bay in the postseason spell nothing but trouble. Road games, and more road games. That is my hope.
Here's a little bit why I disagree, actually. Again, we've lost a lot of playoff home games since we won that Super Bowl in 2010. We've lost a lot of playoff road games here as well, right? I mean, we've lost to Arizona in the wild card, the divisional round. We've lost to Seattle in the 2014 NFC Championship. We lost, at the 49ers twice. We've lost at the Falcons, right? I think that the home and road game thing to me, I don't think matters as much. Here's the thing, and it's because personally, I would hear your point about not wanting the bye if the Packers came off and they played sloppy off the bye. But if you look at the 3 postseasons under Matt LaFleur, they went down and scored a touchdown on the first possession versus the Seahawks. They went down and I believe they scored a field goal on their first possession against the Rams. And they went down and they scored a touchdown on the first possession of the Niners game. They didn't come out sloppy. So I don't think that the bye is not like if you come out like how Dallas did in 2016 against us and let us get a 21-3 lead on them, that is like okay, maybe the bye is not for us. Like I think that the bye actually does them well. But I do understand the point of I think that we've seen a little bit, especially over the past couple of years of Rodgers' career, that maybe he doesn't perform the best under pressure. And again, that's not to say that he's not an all-time great quarterback because he is, right? He's if I'm picking an all-time team, Rodgers is he's right up there with any other quarterback you can possibly think of.
Well, yeah, I think once Brady, Montana, and Peyton Manning are off the board. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and you're talking about your Marinos and your Breezes and your Rodgerses and your Favres, but yeah,
exactly. But I think that all that really matters, and I think that this is what the Packers have gotten screwed up on in the past couple of years, and it's not screwed up on because eventually you're probably going to have to play him anyway, but they've gotten every year it feels like the worst matchup, right? 2019, the Packers didn't have a shot against the 49ers, and I knew that going into it, right? In 2020, they had a very winnable game against the Buccaneers, but sometimes you don't win. Sometimes you just don't win the game. Like sometimes that it just doesn't happen, right? I don't think I'm on the Rodgers didn't choke train. Brady was the one Brady threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight drives in the second half, but it wasn't a choke because Kevin King committed a pass interference, a quote unquote pass interference. I think that last year against the 49ers was an issue. And I think that I honestly do think that having no Davante Adams is going to be part of that issue. Because if you look, Rodgers is going to be forced to trust somebody. And if you look, the Packers were rolling in that game. I know a lot of people remember that game probably as well as you and I do. What changed that game was the Mercedes Lewis fumble. The Packers were going to go down and score another touchdown if Mercedes Lewis does not fumble. And I will stand on that till the day I die. They probably missed the extra point because that's how Packers special teams works. Yeah. But they were going to go down and score another touchdown, and it is a completely and totally different ballgame. Heck, it's a completely and totally different ballgame if Aaron Jones just runs out of bounds instead of trying to cut back inside on that 80-yard catch and run he had. It's a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different ballgame if the punt doesn't get blocked. I think that although I think Rodgers deserves a lot of blame for the game this most recent year, I think that this team can definitely. I don't think that they're going to be the team that wins the Super Bowl. I'll save that for my prediction show. But I think that especially with the revamped defense and especially with what we've seen from Romeo Doubs here in camp, and I think that Rodgers, he's going to have to spread the ball out. I think that you're going to be looking at a Packers offense that we haven't seen before. I think that Rodgers is going to get his pass attempts, right? He's going to get at least 500. You were saying 525. I think he's going to get at least 500 pass attempts this year. But I think we're going to be seeing an offense that's way more centered around the run than we've seen. And I think that that's honestly a good thing because it's going to be able to play off of the play action. You're going to see a guy who, Christian Watson, once he eventually gets healthy, he's not a stranger to having the block in the run game. And I think he's going to be, especially with his speed, he is going to be fantastic coming off of that. And I think that, again, it's tough to call a team a Super Bowl contender unless they've been there and done that like the Bengals have now. But I mean, you look at it, no one would have called the Bengals a Super Bowl contender, 12 months ago, right? But here we are, and we have them in the Super Bowl contender tier now because they went and they played for a Super Bowl. I think that it's very realistic for Green Bay, especially if they wind up getting, a 1 or a 2 seed. I would probably prefer the 2 seed, and that because I don't think that the Rams have.
I agree with you. Not to cut you off. Our road to the 2 seed hinges on. Our cap is a 2 seed. There's no way, unless the Rams just stink up the drink. I think the Rams, like I said, I think the Rams win 14. We get the 2 seed and we beat Tampa Bay in week 3. That game's really important. That's a playoff game. Like that. Yeah. That game in week 3 is a playoff game. The game against Dallas is also a playoff game. Because I think Dallas needs that. The game against Dallas and the game against Philadelphia, those 3 games are playoff games for us. The Rams game doesn't matter because whether we win or we lose, I think the Rams will still be the 1 seed in the conference. But Dallas, Philly, Tampa Bay are playoff games, and what makes it even more important is the only one of those teams that comes to Green Bay is Dallas. We have to go to Philadelphia. We have to go to Tampa Bay. Those games are really important. Those are the difference between us being the 2 seed, the 3 seed, or even the 4 seed, depending on how those things check out. I agree with you. Like I'm not saying it's impossible I like last season. I didn't say the Packers were the best team in football until after week 18 finished. I didn't. I was so hesitant. Like, that's
right.
Slow down. Then we make the playoffs. I'm like, I told everyone, we're going to lose to the 49ers. No, you're not. No, we're going to lose to the 49ers. What happens? We lose to the 49ers. And I'm just like, I hate to be right about this, but I did tell you guys we were going to lose to the 49ers. So everything you're saying is perfectly fair. I just look at this and I say, there are 2 teams in our own conference that are better than us. There's a team in the Vikings that could be good. The Eagles and the Cowboys, I think, are playoff teams. No one's talking about the Saints. And I think the Saints are going to be really, really, really good this season, especially from a defensive standpoint, because you add Tyrann Mathieu. They've already had a top 10 defense each of the last couple of seasons. They've shut down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 4 times in the regular season since Tom has been in Tampa. That's massive. Like, they're going to cause problems for offenses all over the conference and all over the league. I wouldn't be shocked if the Packers make the Super Bowl. I would like for them to make it and win the Super Bowl, of course, as a fan. But right now, it's hard for me to say that I could see them competing for a Super Bowl. I'd have to reevaluate come the halfway point of the season when things have kind of settled and I kind of see what's happening. But right now, today, I can't. I do think, though, they are the spoiler alert. I do think that they are the 6th best team in football. I think the only other 2 teams that are better than them, aside from the top 4 I mentioned earlier, are the Chargers. And ironically enough, I do think that the Eagles could be better than the Packers from a record standpoint because they have 10 games against the NFC East and the AFC South, and those divisions suck. so that's where that comes from. But real quick, please let everybody know where they can find you and all of your content before we get out of here.
Yeah, at Emmitt J. Sevores on Instagram and Twitter, at the C Team Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If you like talking about the or reading about the Packers, you can find my stuff on Dairyland Express. That's Dairyland at then XPRESS, no E, .com. And then if you like baseball, if you're a big Mariners guy, probably not, but if you are, at SotoMojo.com. I write all my stuff out there. Thank you, Marcus, for having me on. I've had a fantastic time finally getting to talk about the Packers with you, like in a place where we're supposed to. And this is probably the first time we've done it since probably draft night. And that was
It's the first time we've talked since draft night about the Packers.
That's wow. Yeah, that was a rough night. It was a rough night.
So you guys know where to find me: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at GZP Marcus. Follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Go Talk with Marcus. Like, subscribe, kick the notification bell on all platforms so you don't miss anything. September 1st is a very important day. Make sure you guys mark it on your calendars. And also a change will be coming to the show for this season. And I'll announce that as the season wanes. Or as the season gets closer. I'll talk about that on one of these shows as that time gets closer. So for Emmitt Sevores of the C Team Pod and the Bolt, this is Marcus with Go Talk Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your lives.